Hello, and welcome to another one of Becky Flaherty's 52 Weeks of Florals, and this time it's golden wattle. Well, it is for me. She's just said wattle, and she has said that we can do any sort of wattle we like. I grew up in Australia, so for me it's going to be golden wattle because it's a beautiful tree, and it's a flowering tree. It is responsible for a lot of allergies around this time of the year, I'm not going to lie, but it's really, really pretty. And so I thought, well, I'm going to show you using a few tools, my usual little Stillman and Byrne sketchbook. And this time, I'm only going to use Faber-Castell Gold Faber Aqua Dual markers and a Tombow and a Lyra, but all the same sort of thing. So not really mixed media, but mixed brand at least. Now these are fabulous. I love them. They've got a brush tip one end and they have a fine tip the other end, which is really useful actually. And these are all the same. So this is the Tombow, again brush tip one end and fine tip the other. They vary in fineness from brand to brand, as you might expect, and you've probably seen one of these products on the market. Now, I'm not sure if you can see my sketch this week. It's quite light. I'm not sure I can see it myself, to be fair. But in the interests of minimalism, I have used a watercolour pencil to sketch my wattle. And the reason I've done that is because when I use these water-based markers, the watercolour pencil will disappear as I work, whereas if I used just a regular graphite pencil, I would be left with marks and sometimes even indentations in the paper, because sometimes I use a mechanical one and they're quite sharp and hard. So I found that sketching with a very light watercolour pencil is really good. And you don't have to remove the marks. What you have to do is to choose the lightest possible watercolour pencil, to begin with, because then it will disappear itself as you work. Now, the colours I've got are in the Faber-Castell Gold Faber Aqua Dual markers, and that is not just, let me grab over here. They've also got another brand out with a slightly different barrel. It's the darker colour barrel, but otherwise it looks similar. This is the Gold Faber sketch marker, not to be confused with those. The sketch markers are alcohol based, and I haven't decided if I like them yet or not. I don't mind them. They've got some fabulous colours, but they tend to go through just about every sketchbook or sketch paper that I own, so I'm not sure. Haven't decided. I'll let you know when the jury's back in, but today we're using the watercolor ones. Now these can be washed out with a brush and used just like watercolor, but I'm not going to do that. However, you'll need three colors. You need a very light, a medium, and a dark yellow. The reason I do this is because I never ever just do something in one color and leave it flat. I love texture and I love creating the textures with colors and things like that, which is why I love mixed media, to be fair. So what I'll be doing today is starting out with the lightest one, which is Light Yellow Glaze 104. I will then put some interest into the bottom of it with Middle Chrome Yellow 208 and then Dark Chrome Yellow 109 to add some definition. And I'm going to grab my rather battered sun that I use for my Patreon students. This shows us that the light's coming from this way, and that helps me to work out where to put highlights in the shade. And for the leaves and stems of the wattle, I'm going to use my Lyra Aqua Brush Duo in Sap Green and the Tombow 076, and you're going to have to take my word for that because Tombow famously do not put their colour names on the barrels. I wish they would. There's some space there and everybody else does it. So, sorry, rant over. Normal service will begin momentarily. Okay, this is a really nice, easy sketch. What we do is we start off with a sketch in the lightest possible colour that you can come up with. Sorry about that if the sound went down. I've used Albrecht Dürer, Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer in Cream 102. And it's sorry, a bit of glare there. That has given me this picture that neither of us can see very well. So kudos. However, it will disappear. This one is very, very similar to the colour I'm going to start with. So normally when I sketch flowers and things like that, I start with leaves and stems. This time I'm going to start with the little puff balls, and all we did to get the flowers happening was to draw circles in yellow. That's absolutely all it is. I won't reinvent the wheel here and tell you that you can actually Google wattle. This is golden wattle because I'm pretty sure you know that already. Okay, so what I've done is I've coloured in my circles with yellow. So far so good. The next thing is, so that was just sort of just colouring, get the colour on the paper. Next thing, we choose the medium yellow, which is our middle chrome, and this time, knowing that the light is coming from this direction, we just come to the bottom here and dot some colour on. These little guys are little puff balls. They are full of pollen, hence the misery they create in the midst of all this beauty. And I'm just giving them a little bit of definition here. I don't want to go over all of it. This is a really good example of the thirds rule in painting. And on this case, it's not the thirds rule you think it is. What it means is the first layer is 3/3, as in complete. The second layer is 2/3, as in you can still see some of layer 1. And the third layer is 1/3, as in you can see layers 1 and 2. If you completely cover it every single time, there's no point. Okay, so putting some definition there. Now this is still pretty dotty and I don't want that particularly. So let's finish that. My trick next is to go back to the light colour, this colour you started with, and just blend it out a little bit. You've got to be careful what sort of paper you're working on. This just blends it a small amount and tends to glaze with that second colour. Otherwise, there's quite a jump between colour 1 and colour 2. Yeah, paper's not liking it particularly. So dab rather than rub. Like I said, this is a Stillman and Byrne textbook, sketchbook. I am not in love with it, I'm not going to lie. Right, so as you can see now, we've got some little round puffball-y type flowers, simple. Last colour is the brightest, and this is just going to be round the side here. If you wanted to, you could almost go in with the second colour again. And again, just moving that around a bit and using this on the area that is the furthest away from the light source or where something is over the top of it. Wattle is one of those great things that you can bend into a shape too. If you wanted to make a card, you could make a circle out of it because it's just a lovely filler flower. Here in Europe, we could probably use this same technique to paint mimosas and things like that because it's much the same sort of thing. Okay, so here we have everything done. There we go, just a little bit of smoothing out there. That's done. You might want to add some smaller buds just as you go down here. I would do that in the medium yellow and then give that a little bit of definition with the darker. You don't need to do more than that. That's it. That's the flowers done. Now the leaves I'm going to use, and again we're working backwards because normally with a tree you'd probably put some sort of skeleton in the shape of the trunk or in the shape of you know, trunk and branches, things like that. But with this we're working backwards, so it's slightly weird, but that's why I find it helpful to have the sketch there so that I've got something to go on. So again we start with the lightest colour, which this time is the Tombow 076, and I want to make these leaves pressing down and then coming up again. Might need to move the paper around a little. I do, in fact. This sort of wattle has got these really lovely long leaves. Maybe coming back in and doing something else with this in a second. I shall explain. Because now we've got the leaves in, we can swap this over the other side and use the fine liner to put the stem in a little bit. Then we can decide if we need any more leaves or not. See, some of these stems are just peeking out between these, because these have all got to be joined to something. So you might put some there, and remember you've got essentially that one's coming down to that leaf. This one is hidden behind here, to be fair. Again, we're not after realism, we're after believable though. So you've got to make sure that what you're doing looks believable. And finally now, I'm hoping that this one is the proper one. Pretty sure I'm quite happy, I think. As in, don't know, let me just have a look and see. This is another marker, and I think, yeah, I'm going to go, so swap the Tombow out for the Goldfarber Green Ochre in 269, because what I want to do is just give a little bit of different colour. See, I find these leaves too flat. So what I'm doing is just putting a little bit towards the top of the leaf. And here, I've got two leaves, one under the other. I've ruined that lovely point I had, which is annoying. That just gives it a little bit more interest. And also coming along the stem, just again away from the light on this side, not the other side. Just giving that some colour definition. I would then consider going back in with either the Tombow 076 or the lightest yellow one, because you can this glazing yellow, light yellow glaze, just to move some of that colour around a little bit. It's watercolour, so you've got to work in reverse order, as you know. I'm in here. Don't want to use too much of that. But basically, that is how I would draw a golden wattle. And as you can see, it's super easy, super quick. Even if you can't draw, you can draw circles and stripes, and that's all this is made up from. And this is basically what the flower looks like, and it looks beautiful. I'm famously not a fan of Australia. I don't like the landscape or anything like that. It's just not my scene. If people love it, that's fabulous. But I do love the wildflowers, and I do love the animals. So I was particularly happy to see that Becky Flaherty had decided to fly south for the winter with us and give us 4 or 5, I think, probably 4. Sometimes it depends how the weeks fall. We've got some lovely Australian wildflowers, and I'm going to see if I can keep up with a whole lot and show you why I love them, because they're pretty easy to draw most of the time and pretty easy to paint, and you get a really nice flower that if you were designing a bunch or a bouquet or a wreath or anything like that, you could pop this sort of thing in as a round shape and fill in with these beautiful happy bright flowers. And like I said, luckily they don't cause the allergies and misery when you're painting them that they cause in real life. Yeah, so they're fun to draw, and that's all you need to do. It really is that simple. We're not going to overcomplicate this, because it isn't. So do join Becky's Instagram challenge. I will put the details in the description box below, and you can see what she's actually doing if you have a look on Instagram, and there may be some others around YouTube as well. So that's how I do this one. I cannot remember which one's next, but that will be a surprise for both of us. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching and for staying with me, and I will see you again next week. Bye.